Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
Thank you to Jerry. Today is Tuesday, May 14th, 2024, primary election day, and I call this meeting to order. All 7 members of the Montgomery County Board of Elections are present virtually for this virtual meeting, and I believe that the first thing on the agenda, other than declaring the quorum present, is my remarks. My only remarks this morning is that I would like to thank Kina, Daniel, and Ami for participating as I did for the 9 o'clock interview, for participating in interviews this morning with WUSA 9. I want to thank reporter Randy Ayala for her her interest in all of us. In addition to interviewing all of us, she also interviewed a voter at the Dropbox and one of our chief judges. And she sounds like she's interested in our canvas. We'll see whether she makes it there. And I particularly want to thank Gilberto Zelaya for helping to arrange all of that. So that was at Walter Johnson High School this morning. And Diane and I have a 4 o'clock appointment, or maybe a little before 4. I think we have to be there at 3:45 for that as well. And Margie, we appreciate your willingness to come at 12, but that one has been canceled. Anyway, I'll save my other observations for uh, for for when we get to that part of the agenda. But I did want to make that remark to thank everybody. Are there any additions or changes to the agenda? All right. Does anyone have campaign contributions to disclose today? Okay, we'll move on from there. So first item of new business is our observations from primary election day. If it's okay with board members, I'm going to start with Boris because it's board members and staff, and I want to hear anything that Boris would like to share.
Thank you, David. I will have just a couple of brief comments, observations that are based on information that we received from the polling places. So this morning, 7 a.m., 232 polling places in Montgomery County were open for all voters to cast their ballots in 2024 presidential primary elections. All 232 polling places will remain open till 8 p.m. today, and we invite our voters to come and cast their ballots. Staff was in the building starting from 5 o'clock in staggered manner to support our volunteers, our election judges in these locations to open their polling places. No problems were reported. No significant problems were reported in opening any of these polling places, nor we have received any reports of any lines at any of the polling places. Going forward, I would say 15 minutes ago, a reminder went out to our chiefs at these locations to start providing us with unofficial turnout numbers as of 11 a.m. this morning. Once we collect these numbers will be provided on our website. We plan to repeat the exercise as required at 4 p.m. today. I just ask everyone for a bit of patience because even though we ask for numbers at 11, they do not necessarily trickle down immediately or within a short period of time. When it comes to the staff, election day is the final day of casting, of delivering vote by mail ballots to our drop boxes. Our drop boxes will be closed at 8 p.m. today, together at the same time as the polling places. If our voters choose to return their voted mail-in ballots via USPS, we ask them to try to make it to the post office to make sure that they are postmarked by today's date. As I said, very, very brief comments as opening went without any major problems, no lines reported, and we are getting ready to take the process through the end of the election day, both in-person voting and vote by mail collection through the drop boxes.
Thank you, Boris. I want to underscore something you just said, which is that if voters want their ballot to be postmarked by today, the only way to be sure is to take it to the post office and watch them stamp your envelope, as in stamp, not put a stamp on it, but actually put the postmark on it. And we have hundreds of ballots that are postmarked too late every election, and we would love to have many fewer of those, and because people will have gotten theirs on time. And of course, the alternative is get it to the drop box, preferably long before 8 o'clock, but certainly by 8 o'clock. And that way we will make sure that we have it in a timely fashion. Okay, I think I'll just throw it open for whoever would like to provide observations of what they have seen this morning.
Mr. President,
Go ahead, Daniel.
just wanted to say that I visited some of the polling places, and I was just amazed at the election workers that are at those places and the professionalism, but also I'll say the customer service exhibited as people were coming to vote. So that's the feedback I can provide right now to everyone.
Can you give a shout out to the places that you were?
Well, um, I'll give a shout out to uh, again in no order because I don't want anyone to think that because
It's
I
not,
call one. That's why I was afraid to
just the places that you went. That's all I want to
start. So I started. I went to Blake again. Um, I know people will say because my daughter went to Blake, that's why I went to Blake first.
know. That's
Again,
fine.
but I went to Blake. I went to um, Springbrook. That's where my son also graduated. That's not the reason why I went there. Uh, but I visited um, uh, Francis Scott Key, um, uh, Rec Center, and obviously I visited the Civic Building, and I have a
I'm sorry, Daniel, we lost you there for a second. Now you're muted. You're muted,
Daniel,
Daniel.
you're muted.
You're muted.
and then I wanted to see them. I'm visiting Leisure World later on. So
Yes. Okay, thank you. Ami, how about you?
Just a moment, I need to unmute. I've been to the Potomac sites. I've been to 3 or 4 there. I've actually forgotten all their names. I have the precinct numbers. Low turnout, not a lot of electioneering, much to my surprise. But the groups that were there were very comfortable with the situations. There were no problems. There was apparently a scanner at one of the places that had a problem, and they called the help desk and found someone who could help them fix it over the phone very promptly. Everything seems to be going fine. I don't think we have any issues at this stage.
Okay, thank you, Ami. Kina.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mr. President. I have been to 2 polling locations, first of which was Galloway Elementary School. I went there to vote in person today, and they're running very smoothly. I did share some notes with Boris regarding their request for ballot machines, which was quickly explained to me. Thank you very much, Boris, for that. And so they also understand as well. And I've also now been to Damascus High School, where I've also enjoyed my time getting to know the constituents here. There's not been any line, and there has not been much electioneering here as well. So I will say the one thing I've really appreciated is the signage around the school. That's been very clear to know exactly what entrance to get into. I think that's something that I look out for at these polling locations. So I'm really glad to see that so far.
Said ballot machines. Which kind of ballot machines are we talking about? Are we talking about scanners? Or are we talking about what was the issue there?
I'll pass it over to Boris, who was able to explain that to me today.
Yeah, there was no issue that we had. I think the Keener received a suggestion from chief judge, I would assume, to consider adding additional ballot marking device to the polling place.
Okay.
Yes, and so it was today that I learned more about the allocation of those machines and what it takes for them to arrive in a certain number. So that was both an education for me and something that served as a reminder for them as well. So thank you very much, Boris, for being very timely with responding to that request.
Thank you, Keena. Diane.
I have been in the Kensington area. It's been pretty quiet. Also Gare Park Elementary, but back to Kensington Town Hall. But more specifically, the last visit, Silver Creek Junior High. Boris, you probably know this. They got their poll books last evening and they were left in an unsecured room. And when the folks who are the judges today came last night and found them in the unsecured room, they checked the vote totals, everything zeroed out. But apparently that's been relayed back to the Board of Elections and your office is talking to people. I was pretty alarmed, as we all should be, but I asked if they'd been if they'd looked at the tamper tapes and whatever items are on the poll books. And they also checked the printers and everything seemed to be in good order. And of course, they were told it was a miscommunication between the super at the school and that assistant. And so everybody's working it out. I guess that's where it stands right now. Boris, were you aware of any of this?
So I'm aware that in a location, there was a miscommunication about a room where the poll books were left. And I know that there were phone calls last night when the election judges were at the polling place trying to set up the polling place, claiming that poll books were not delivered. Poll books were all the time there. They were in the conference room, if I remember properly, that's the location.
Yep.
They were locked because they required, if I remember properly last time's conversation, they needed a facility person from the school to open the room. In addition to having equipment in the rooms at these various locations, Diane absolutely rightly pointed out that all the equipment comes with the security seals, comes with the security tapes, comes with the login codes and passwords and security provisions on these machines that I cannot discuss publicly. So we are in good shape.
Yeah, good. Thank you very much. And then the only other thing there, it's kind of a bit of a sketchy report, but there's been a little bit of an email chain from the folks who contacted me, and I got a phone call about, I think, 2 hours ago. A gentleman had voted at Tacoma Park, and he's a registered Republican,
Which
or he's a
precinct in
Republican.
Which precinct, Diane? Do you know in Tacoma
I'm
Park?
so sorry, that's sketchy. It was just Potomac Park, and they're getting back to me with some specifics. But just to throw it out there, he said that he was not given, his ballot did not have Trump's name on it. Excuse me. So I asked, well, is he a registered independent? Could he be registered Democrat? And the woman said, well, here's a little bit of an airhead. Oh God, this is being public. Anyway, evidently, we're not sure what all the details are, but they're going to go back and check and get some details, and then I will get back to you with more solid info.
Please, because the chances of a Republican being given a ballot without President Trump's name on it is pretty unlikely.
Well, and my first question was, why didn't he say something at the time? But
Indeed.
there are a lot of questions. I just thought I would throw that out there, and I'll give you all an update later. But things looked very quiet in this
Yes.
area. Now, after this, I'm going to be going down more in Chevy Chase, where it should be a lot busier.
Okay.
May I just add that the same ballots that are at the polling places today are the same ballots that were available at the early voting sites for the 8 days from May 2nd to May 9th. We have not received any reports of any candidate not appearing on any ballot style. But then the moment you need learn more, please share so we can follow up more thoroughly.
Yeah, I can only think perhaps this fellow's registered independent, and he's not going to get a presidential on it. So there are any number of things that could have happened. Thanks. Yeah, I will let you know.
Thank you, Diane. Margie.
So sorry, I'm just pulling up my notes. This morning I went to Kingsview Middle School, Waters Landing Elementary School, Lake Seneca Elementary School, and Martin Luther King Jr. Middle School. It was pretty quiet. There were maybe 2 electioneers in all those places. The turnout was very low. I think, Boris, I was at one of the locations where the poll books were locked up, and they had to call the principal, who had to call their one of their staff members to unlock the room. My only additional comment to that is that because of that, they had to set up later. So they opened up at, I think, like 30 minutes later because they were behind trying to get everything set up. So I guess I was
Which
just
precinct
wondering.
was that, Margie?
I'm not.
Which location?
It's either the Lake Seneca or the Kingsview. It's one of the Germantown locations. Yeah, Kingsview. If that's a precinct.
Margie, if I just may help you to clarify here, there's they were late in setting up last night. There was a delay in setting up on Monday because they couldn't access the room. Not late in opening this morning, correct?
They just told me they were late,
So,
like starting
yeah,
something.
they were late to start last night because they didn't have access to the poll books to take them out and set them on the table and start connecting because they couldn't enter the room.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that something where like we just have to reiterate to the staff that like there has to be to the staff of the school that there has to be access?
I want to skip all of that. I want to go right to the superintendent of schools or the school board. There's no reason we vote in schools at every election. There's no reason that we should have this problem. And if a reminder needs to be sent to every school that has a polling place that we need access to voting equipment that's delivered the night before the election, then let's do it.
Yeah,
Because you know, if it sounds like we've just had this issue in 2 different places.
Yeah, number one, lock it up first. Number 2, make sure it's unlocked in time.
Right.
Yeah,
both of those things. I mean,
Yeah.
that doesn't sound like it's. I mean, that's not new, right? There's nothing new about that.
And I've got to assume that if there were any threat of opening late today, we all would have had red alerts. If
No,
there were any
Boris would.
Yeah.
I mean, right? I mean, we didn't.
Well,
lose
no,
any
that's what I'm saying. It would have
Yeah.
filtered.
Yeah,
We received 0 reports about late opening, so.
okay. Yeah, no, so the room was locked. The thing, the concern was that none of the election judges knew what room it was even in. And so they were like trying to look around the building, trying to find the poll books. And then they reached the principal, who then sent their secretary to open it. But I think that I guess my concern was just that the election judges didn't even know where it was, and there was a lot of like extra work on their end to navigate that. And they could have called someone, so I didn't really ask that, which I acknowledge, but just wanted to note that. There was one other thing I wanted to know. But everything else was really good. Like all the election locations were like everyone was doing a really great job. Um, was a really well mix of people of all backgrounds and all ages. So shout out to the outreach people who got these election judges and everyone who's working at the locations. Everyone was really great. The only other suggestion, I guess, is I think in the Waters Landing location, everyone was brand new. So to the extent possible, maybe mixing older returning people and newer people. I know it sometimes is tough, so maybe this is just an observation, but in the Waters Landing location, I think it was mostly new people, so I felt like the election judge felt a little bit overwhelmed with that. But having a little bit more of a mix, if possible, would be helpful.
Thank you, Margie. Let me just add my own observations since I've been to 3 locations this morning. I spent much of the morning working with the Channel 9 reporter to get her what she needed at Walter Johnson. But I've been to Farmland Elementary School. I've been to Walter Johnson, and now I'm at Leisure World. It is very light in all places. Um, didn't see any electioneers at Walter Johnson. I saw a very small number of electioneers at both Farmland and even at Leisure World. As someone said to me here at Leisure World, if it's slow at Leisure World, it's slow everywhere, which is, I think, likely. Obviously, that's not a scientific sample, but usually Leisure World has more activity than most. I think probably a lot of people who are voting by mail in Leisure World. I did get some suggestions from some folks. One of the suggestions was that the facilities report and the list of both election judges and future vote students could be sent out a little bit earlier. That might be helpful in terms of planning for uh, for election day. I believe that they got it in their bags on Saturday. Um, I got a compliment that there was a married couple who were assigned to 2 different precincts, but only had 1 car, and that our staff found a way to get them both into the same location, and I think that's a good thing. Um, Boris, a question for you. Um, Apparently, in the last election, someone told me that there had been um, cards that people were supposed to submit each hour with how many people are in line that they viewed as not being a particularly good use of time that I gather we are not doing this year. Now, of course, this year we would have a lot of zeros. Uh, in fact, we might have zeros at every hour of every day. But I was wondering, is that something that we did before that we don't do now?
Uh, that's calculating the wait times.
Yes.
Handing out the cards is the only way to calculate the wait times. So, but if there are no lines, there is no wait time. So,
Okay, but if they don't have cards to if they don't have cards to fill out, does that mean that they're missing something, or does that mean that we're not asking them this year?
No, that means that they should have alerted us earlier if they didn't locate the cards. Let me write it down. And if you don't mind texting me offline, David.
I will text you offline so that to help them locate that. And the other thing I wanted to say, first of all, that Walter Johnson was very quiet as far as voters in person. I think there were more voters at the drop box than there were there. There is a change in the entrance to the voting location is still in the cafeteria as it was before, but the entrance has moved. It used to be that you entered directly into the cafeteria, and they've moved the entrance, and a number of the voters are trying to enter the way they have in the past, so they probably need some additional signage for the general election so that they know not to enter in that fashion.
Sorry, Dave, which location again?
Well, precinct 431, Walter Johnson High School.
Okay.
The voting's in the same place. The entrance is in a slightly different place, and they just need a sign at the old entrance pointing towards the new entrance.
Easy correction.
Yes.
David.
Yes.
David, this is Ami. One of the things I was told, though, was that the old entrance is still the entrance to be used for handicapped voters. So it needs to be available and signed for that.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm sure Boris and Mindy will take care of that for the fall. Any other observations? Kevin, do you have any observations you'd like to add?
I do not, David. I think everyone's covered everything. I think things are proceeding smoothly. The turnout's been light, and I think the number of individuals outside the polling places has been, it's been less than we've seen in years past.
I agree with all of that. And thank you for that. Anyone else have anything to add before we move on to the next item on the agenda?
Yeah, let me make one more comment, David.
Please go ahead.
A suggestion was made by one of the chief judges, and I believe it was at the Wayside Elementary School. There is an instruction sheet for what to do with the bags in which one puts the received vote by mail envelopes in the voting site. And that list of instructions is not clear as to what is supposed to be done with the bag at the end of the day. And so the suggestion was made that we relook at our list of instructions there and try and make it clearer. And so I'm just passing that on if we can do that by the general election.
Okay, I haven't seen those, so I don't know whether I agree with the lack of clarity, but we'll certainly take a look, I'm sure.
I agree with the lack of clarity, but I'm not entirely sure how to fix it. And I think the staff needs to think about that.
Okay.
David?
Diane.
Yeah, this is for David and Boris, probably maybe even Kevin weigh in. This is not a new concern of mine. But when they receive ballots that really should be either in a drop box or the US Postal Service, what kind of security is there once they're handed over? Excuse me.
That's definitely not a David question. That sounds like a Boris question.
I'm apologize, Dan. Can you just say it again one more time?
Yes, indeed. When people do hand deliver mail-in ballots that should more appropriately be put into Dropbox or the US Postal Service, what kind of security is for housing them once they've left the voter's hand and are then
Okay.
wherever?
So let me just answer that very briefly. We have and the board has verified the existence and looked through the type of bags that we use for provisional voting. the same type of bag, just different color, is used for the ballots to collect, mainly ballots that are delivered at the polling place. These ballots, at the end of the election day, are delivered the same night to the Board of Elections, where they are recorded per polling place and then extracted from the bags. So the same process that same security measures that apply for provisional ballots, it's applied. The same bag is used for the this type of ballots, just different color, so we know visually which ballots are which.
And just to
Right.
clarify for the record, the bags for provisional ballots as well as the bags for submitted mail-in ballots are not bags that someone can reach in and pull a ballot out.
Yeah.
Once the ballot is in, is it I mean, maybe you
please.
can explain, Boris, what the mechanism is, but it is not a situation where someone, once it's in,
Right.
and it cannot be pulled back out.
Literally, the bags are built in a way that they extend, I would say, up like 3/4 of an inch, and that is a maximum that they can be open, basically preventing anyone to put the hand all the way down. They are deep, meaning that all ballots will fall to the bottom of the bag. So literally, you cannot access it from the top in any way.
Right. Thank you very much. Are they orange or have I just dated myself?
Orange are provisional, yellow is a vote by mail.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other observations?
That just quickly reminded me, this is a very tiny suggestion, is that for the election judges binders, if the pages could be numbered, because sometimes they'll take them out to look at them and then they don't know what order things are in, so that was just a very small thing I got asked.
Okay, thank you, Marchie. All right, let's move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the public notice regarding tabulation of early voting and early canvass results. Boris.
Thank you, David. We just, as the board knows and the public knows, during early voting lasts for 8 days. We do not tabulate the results of early voting until the election day itself. And the same applies for tabulating the results for early canvass. And in Montgomery County Board of Canvassers had 4 sessions where early return mail-in ballots were canvassed. So this is a request for a public notice that we will tabulate early voting results and early canvass results in the course of election day as permitted by the State Board of Elections, and these results will be published after the polls close tonight at 8 p.m.
Boris, is a motion needed, or is it simply a notice to the public that we are doing it?
My understanding is that we have to, the board has to issue a kind of public notice in the course of a meeting that is open for the public, which I believe this meeting serves the purpose.
Okay, so I will just ask if anyone has an objection to this notice. I realize it may not actually require a vote of the board, but this is consistent with our past practice in every election that I can remember, that since early voting has existed, early voting ballots are tabulated on election day. We do not release any results until the polls have closed on election day. And I want to once again thank the board for the work that has led to the ballots that have already been canvassed but not tabulated for mail-in balloting, which helps us get a head start on the ones we're going to get that we haven't had a chance to canvass yet. And a reminder, Alex, I'll come to you in a second. A reminder to everyone that we are meeting again on Thursday morning at 10 o'clock to continue the mail-in ballot canvass. Alex.
Just a quick question. So we were just talking about the bags for the provisional and mail-in ballots that are returned or deposited at the polling places. Are those bags then returned to the board headquarters on election night along with the flash drives? Is that what happens? And then do the mail-in ballots get a date stamp when they go in the bag or when they come out? Or do we just assume since they're in the bag, it's all May 14th? I didn't know.
Okay, actually, I have to provide 3 answers to 2 questions that you asked, Alex. So yes, orange bags with the provisional ballots and yellow bags with the vote by mail ballots will be delivered with the sticks and everything tonight to the board of elections. Any vote by mail ballot returned by 8 p.m. to the polling place will be accepted in the yellow bag. At 8 p.m., each draw box in the county will be locked. Anyone who is late, and while the team is out there standing next to the closed draw box, will have every right to deposit their mail-in ballot in a green bag, which will indicate that those mail-in ballots were received after the polls closed and by extension after the draw box is closed, basically making them on a staff level deemed untimely to be presented to the board for final determination.
So let me just underscore what you just said, Boris, for those who are listening. The fact that someone at our Dropbox takes a ballot from a voter after 8 o'clock p.m. does not mean that that ballot will be counted. And in fact, it will be labeled as late. The only way I think that it would be counted is if the polls had been, if there was some judicial intervention that suggested that the deadline were to be extended. So note to all of our mail-in ballot voters, don't wait until 8 o'clock and be in the green bag. Deposit your ballot long before 8 o'clock, and then you'll be sure that your ballot will be timely.
And I just, Alex, to answer the last part, every ballot that is received, that is returned to the board, gets a date stamp of the date when it was returned. So anything that comes in the yellow bags that's collected at polling places will be timely because it's collected before the polling place was closed itself.
Now, does that mean, Boris, that there will be a marking on the yellow bag ballots? And do we mark the ballots that come in by Dropbox? Or does that just mean that the only ones that get marked are the ones that are either in the green bag or are by U.S. mail?
So every ballot, every vote by mail ballot that's returned, whether through USPS, in person, draw boxes, early voting center, or the polling place, gets date stamped. That we just date stamp every ballot that we receive.
Excellent. Hopefully in legible fashion, because we have lots of experience with those postmarks that are not ours, that are hard to read.
I think that the sorting machine does a pretty good job. The only issue is we have to hand stamp the returned web deliveries, but that's well-known story.
Sure. Diane.
I just want to be able to think this through to the end. The ballots that are put in the green bag will ultimately be disposed of or dispensed with how?
So I would say day or two after the election day. Last year it was me, because I was manager of water services, pulling all those ballots from the green bags, adding a stamp on them, untimely, indicating that they came through the green bags. And green bags indicate that they were collected after draw boxes closed and the locations where they were collected.
Okay, thanks. And then the other one, back to the vote tallies. As we continue with our canvassing days, what is the release, what's the method and the time schedule for releasing vote totals after today?
So my understanding is that we cannot scan on election day or day after the election. After that, anything that is not already scanned from early canvas and anything that we canvas on Thursday and going forward will be uploaded to the state on daily basis.
Okay.
And state will be updating the results as ongoing basis.
Okay,
When you say
thank
that,
you.
Boris, you mean that at the end of each day's canvas. So in terms of when it's likely to get posted, and we realize the state does the posting, we don't.
Yeah.
But we're talking about the evening essentially after we're completing the canvas. We're not expecting results during the course of the day.
Yeah, I would expect the updates to be later in the evening. If I recall properly, Dave, you might be better to correct me here. It was kind of late in 2022, sometime kind of 11ish, but we will have to follow up with the state because I think that the great extent it will depend on the volume that is being uploaded from different counties and everything. So let me figure out with the state and let me find out more information.
Yeah, I think it would be useful for everyone if we are able to let them know when to expect whatever the upload is. So, thank you for that.
Mr. President, I will have to sign off regrettably. Sorry about that. I have a mandatory meeting coming up. So thank you everybody for your hard work, and I will be in touch.
Okay, thank you, Alex. Thank you for joining us for this meeting. Anything else on the tabulation of our early voting and early canvas results? Okay, the next is public comment. We had no one who signed up for public comment in advance. We have exactly one member of the public who is in attendance at this moment. So if she wants to address the board, I need her to raise her hand. If not, we will assume that there's no one who wants to. When I say raise her hand, I mean her hand on Zoom. I do not. Obviously, she's not visible to me, and she is now left. All right. So there's no public comment at this meeting. So future action items from today's meeting. I'm not aware that we have, during the course of this meeting, created any future action items. I do want to add one, which is if any board member is interested in observing what happens at the board this evening, please let's start by letting me know, and then I will let Boris know. But that it's not a requirement for board members, but if you do want to do that, it would be good to know so that they're ready for us. Unless, Boris, you have another way you'd like to handle that.
I'm good, David. We can follow up.
Okay.
Are you expecting any candidate reps to be watching that? I used to have that drill. I don't know if there's sufficient.
I don't think we've heard from anyone. I haven't.
Okay, just curious.
Boris, have you heard from anyone, or Kevin?
Nope, nothing that I heard.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. The last thing before adjournment, I mentioned this right now is our May meeting. We are not having a Board of Elections meeting on May the 20th, which is our typical date for our monthly meetings. This is our monthly meeting. We are scheduled to have canvas Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Monday, etc. But obviously we will keep you posted of any changes to that schedule. Our next scheduled regular meetings are on Monday, June 17th and on Monday, July 15th. Those are both the third Mondays of the month as is our usual. Anything else for the good of the order before we adjourn? Okay, thank you everyone very much. Appreciate everything that you guys are doing.
Good luck out there, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you.
The same to all of you.
Thanks, David.